Pride Royal Ivy, our protagonist, suddenly recalls that a Japanese girl was ice-kited by Truck Kun, and it's sent to a game called Our Ray of Light, where she is the last boss and the cruelest person in that reality. Upon that memory, she faints, and then she is visited by her father, the concert prince, and they realize that she had her first premonition, as she asked about her secret sister, as in the game, so he goes to inform her mother about the good news. However, Pride also remembers that in the game, her father would die in an accident as his carriage had a damaged wheel. Hence, she goes so far as to alert him that she almost falls off the building, scaring the life out of her servants who live in constant fear of her. She cries and apologizes to them as they are more in fear for their lives and were treated with such cruelty before she got in that body. Later that day, her father informs her that her sister's birthday, Tyra, who is also the main protagonist of the game, is gonna be soon, so they will finally meet. The day passes, and she remembers how cruel Pride was with a character in the game, and this day was the day she was introduced to Stale, a kid who was ripped apart from his mother, and also had the power of teleportation. From now on will be her adopted brother. In the game, Pride makes him sign a contract of slavery with the promise of him visiting her mother. However, this doesn't happen. Seeing how sad he is, Pride at night comes and visits him and gives him a key for him to visit his mom with his power. However, he cannot. He was under if he visits his mom, both of them could. This made Pride sad, and she apologized for having such a short panorama of the situation. The next day, Pride and Stale sign a contract of subservience, in which he can think and act with his will but not harm his master. Pride asks Stale to call her by her first name. However, Chancellor Gilbert tells them that in front of other people, he only can call her Your Majesty or older sister, and the last one is the chosen one by Pride, which makes curiosity of Gilbert increases as he is curious why Pride has changed that much, and he's scolded by the prince consort. Stale and Pride share moments, and Stale tries to give him all to learn the etiquette, orders, and information he needs, but this makes him fall sick. Pride takes care of him and even makes him company while he is sick. In bed, she hugs him and asks him to kill her if she one day turns on their kingdom, as she desires to make all of her people smile. This confuses Stale and makes him wonder why such a good person would think those things. A nightmare of how Pride treats Stale is tormenting Stale, as she remembers how the Prind in the game made Stale kill his mother with his own hands, but also forbade him to kill himself, as he couldn't kill her only for her pleasure. He wakes up not remembering that much, but with the sensation of something horrendous happening to him. While going to his classes, Stale remembers how the rumors about Pride were about her being a horrendous and spoiled rich person who treated everyone as an insignificant being. However, he disagrees with this rumor, as she reminded him of the kidness of his mother in that cold castle. Then he is called by Pride again to a private reunion with Chancellor Gilbert, the prince's consort, and she informs him that from now on he can receive letters from his mother and can write letters back to her, which moves him to tears as Pride consoles him. Later that same day, when Stale is about to write his mom a letter, he sees Gilbert talking with other men, and using his power of teleportation, he eavesdrops on the situation that is Gilbert initiating gossip about Pride, ruining her reputation. Going back to his room, he makes a vow about protecting her of anything like this, and he will make an effort to be the best loyal subject she would ever have. Meanwhile, the queen is with Tyra, who is nervous about meeting her sister at her next event. The next event comes, and Stale is surprised by the beauty of Pride, who also compliments him, and they're called to the gala where they are introduced to the public, making their first public appearance. After them comes Tyra, who looks so adorable that even Pride melts terribly for her. So Pride decides to grab her siblings' hands and promise to develop a better kingdom by their side, which moves the people and also the queen, who informs the public that from now on Pride will be the next in line for being a queen. At the dance, Pride shares time with her young sister, and Gilbert compliments Tara for being a replica of the queen. For some reason, dismisses Pride, which Stale doesn't take lightly, and answers him with the same level of sassiness, which makes Pride laugh. Then the head of the knights, Commander Roderick, who congrats her for being the next in the throne, and while this happened, the queen tells her husband that she can't any longer see the future of Pride, which makes her happy because the future prior Pride's premonition was terrible. 3 years have passed, and now Pride has grown, and with her also her siblings. Stale is trying his best in attack combat. However, he isn't that good, so Pride tries one time, and with only seeing, she dominates the combat ability, as her character has the hidden power of cheat, which allows Pride to master anything with only one look. Stale gets sad, but Pride comforts him by telling him that she will need him if she is overpowered by brute force and day, as she couldn't defend herself in that situation, which makes Tyra sad, and Pride has to once again comfort one of her siblings. While Stale is training, they suddenly are called to see the military training of the kingdom's soldiers, which Pride agrees to see as it can be useful. During the practice, Pride remembers what in-game Pride did to those pure soldiers and becomes sad. However, this sadness is interrupted as there is an emergency and the vice captain is called to attend it. Pride takes this opportunity to learn how the knights can handle emergencies. Seeing the emergency and how Commander Roderick was trapped between stones, she orders to supply the wounded soldiers while the forces arrive, and using Stale's power, the supplies arrive in no time and everyone is left fascinated by such power. Roderick is fascinated by the power of Stale and frightened about Pride hiding such power. As the forces were about to come, Pride had a premonition in which the cliff would fall off and crush every single person under it, so Pride orders the recruits and soldiers to retire. However, Commander Roderick cannot retire as his leg is crushed and trapped by stones, but also he cannot cut himself because of his power. At that precise moment, Roderick's son, Arthur, arrives and sees how his father is with no exit of his situation, and Pride sees how things are escalating, decides to interfere, and with that, she takes an enemy as a prisoner and whispers something in his ear while the cliff was falling down, and after showing amazing combat skills and looking like a warrior angel for Arthur. The prisoner, who looks Pride like a monster, protects them using his earth control, and after it, Arthur feels not only relieved but happy, as all the persons in the room except for Stale, who was ad as he can't protect Pride as he wants to. A flashback of how the old game occurs, as Arthur was supposed to see how his father died in that moment, but also notice how Pride could prevent it, but decided not to and treated the soldiers and his father like disposable. This would make in-game Arthur so angry that he vowed to become a knight like this dad and bring Pride to justice. In the present, every soldier is relieved that the captain is safe and also shocked that Pride was there with mere soldiers. Later, the commander is not only treated but also completely healed. Now in optimal conditions, he wants Pride to go first in a carriage as she is royalty. However, she refuses first, so the commander lifts her, which makes her nervous as she has her skirt ripped and she was showing her legs. The commander puts her down, but with this everyone, including him, starts laughing as she's 11 years old and has no feminine appeal for the soldiers, and all of this is because he wants to speak with her about this issue and cover Pride with his jacket. The next day, they have a secret audience as Pride doesn't want this incident to become public since it would damage the knight's reputation. At first, the commander scolds Pride for putting her life at risk, stating clearly that he knows what his life is worth and that his life is worthless compared to hers, as they would gladly sacrifice themselves to save her. Pride is saddened at hearing this, so she answers firmly that she saved them as their life is as precious as her, as if she didn't save them, the people they would save in the future would be also harmed as well. These words moved them so much that they kneeled to her, telling her thank you. Arthur appears in the scene also thanking Pride, who tells him that he will become a powerful knight, which moves his father, who also kneels at her being proud of his son becoming a knight, but also asks her forgiveness for his pride and thanks her. Meanwhile, Pride whispers to Arthur if she someday goes down a dark path, she wants him to cut her throat, which impacts Arthur so much that he vows to protect her from every single damage, becoming her sword and light in the darkness. The next morning, Arthur is ready to practice as he remembers how he used to do it every day, but when he got his powers, he realized they were more useful for plants than fighting. Now determined, he will become a knight. Shortly after, Commander Roderick arrives and is pressured by Arthur to practice even when drunk. In the practice, Arthur asks his father about Pride and declares openly have interest in her, as strong people always seek strong individuals. Soon after, his wife appears and Arthur almost tells what happened yesterday, so Roderick flees before his wife pressures him to tell more about this issue, forgetting his sword in the process. Meanwhile, Pride remembers how Arthur in the game was devastated by his father's death, but when Tyra wanted to comfort him, he didn't let her, as he didn't want a woman that shared the same blood as Pride to touch him. Going back to her senses because of her siblings, Pride tries to cover it by telling them that she is worried about the knights and Arthur, which Sweet Tara replies that everyone would be Ak. So they go to the training grounds where all the knights try to train with Pride, forgetting that she is a princess apparently, but the commander remembers them as Pride was there only to return the jacket, and Arthur arrives to bring the sword to his dad as he forgot it when he rushed out of an uncomfortable situation. So after this situation, Stale invites Arthur to train with him, not only to interrogate him, but also to express that he feels that Arthur's feelings are genuine, and he knows he made a secret vow while thanking Pride, so he asks Arthur to become the sword for Pride while he would be the shield for her. Then Arthur tells Stale to stop being so corny and stop making that cynical smile, so that he can behave like normal around him. And with this starts a new friendship where Stale proposes Arthur to try the knight test the next year. 1 year has passed and Tyra and Pride are in a library in which Pride is reading the civil code and laws of the country using her ability to learn them. At first, she reread them as in the game. Pride used her knowledge to bend the laws in her favor, making her a corrupt governor. After that, she asks Tyra what her favorite story is, and she answers the book she had on hand, as the prince remembers her of Stale, but also the princess as his sister, which makes Stale blush a lot. Later, Pride is called along with Tyra and Stale to have an audience with her mom, but in reality, it is a facade for the first test as the next in line for Pride. Her first trial, she was going to judge as a queen the man who saved her with the powers of the earth, as he was a criminal named Val. The queen asks Pride how she is going to judge him, and Pride reveals 3 options with only one: signing a contract of slavery, having the results for the criminal to live. Pride lets Val choose, and he chooses the contract of slavery with the cost of his freedom, and following the sign, Pride explains the 3 conditions for his contract. 1. He can't hurt anyone of the royal family. 2. He must protect the people of her family, especially Tyra. 3. If he is one day in danger, he can return to the castle and ask for help. With these conditions, she tells him to be gone even when he is confused by the third one. Taira is saddened as Pride is supposed to be protected, but Pride dismisses it as she wants to one day rule with her siblings by her hand, which moves their hearts and share a warm moment together. Later that same day, Arthur and Stale were training until Pride arrived along with Taira. Arthur was embarrassed and surprised, but also because Pride and Taira made them flower crowns, and because Taira forgot to make her one, Stale and Arthur made her the crown and only got one flower for each one. Then the clock marks and sounds, which symbolizes that Arthur needs to go, and everyone wish him luck. 2 years have passed and Arthur is already a knight and was promoted by Princess Pride to knight status, while his father is moved to tears after seeing his son finally becoming a knight. Later, Stale was once again compared to Gilbert, which hurt his feelings, and Arthur for some reason decides to give him glasses as he thinks it fits his character, and it does as he looks somehow elegant. That same afternoon, Gilbert was pressuring Pride about giving the authorization of a new law where the people have to sign what their special power. Pride remembers that in-game Pride approved that law only for her benefit, as after knowing each special power, she made tons of people sign contracts of slavery and started a tainted part of history of her kingdom. To prevent this, Pride decides not to approve the law and stop talking to Gilbert about this incident, which makes Stale angry, as she considers Gilbert rude and clawed. After that, Pride finally remembers that Gilbert was in the game, however, as an old man, since Pride made him cursed to look like an old man, but also that he has a fiancée named Maria, who will die in the afternoon after the law is approved, which makes him sad and bitter. The next morning, Chancellor Gilbert is not where to be found, and Pride, remembering how many days pass before that, Pride realizes that it's that afternoon when Maria is supposed to die, so she prepares along with Stale, who now can teleport with a person. And they do find Gilbert after he tried to buy some people for his cause, as he wants to cure Maria of her sickness. However, Pride informs him about his premonition of Maria's, which breaks him. He remembers how he lived his life as a bad person. He reconsidered how he was living his life after meeting Maria, who was the light in the darkness for him. After a year of knowing her, she tells him that she will become the fiancée of another man, but they both share a bitter kiss of love. However, Gilbert doesn't give up, as 3 days later, he develops his ability of eternal youth, which permits to alter the physical age of a person. So after that, he tells Maria to wait for him, as he promises to see her again in a couple of years, and he does so after becoming the Chancellor of the nation, and Maria accepts to be his fiancée. But years after those fantastic moments, Maria falls deeply sick with an incurable sickness, which still prevails in the present. So Stale wants to judge him, but his sister doesn't allow it, as now it isn't the moment and it's part of her people. Pride also tells him that there's hope, and they go back to the castle. Pride orders Stale to bring Gilbert to Maria so that she will search for Arthur. And when she does go to the training field and asks for Commander Roderick to call for Arthur, he yells so loud that she almost goes deaf. But Arthur appears, and Pride asks him to escort her, and that she will explain later. So after this, they're reunited with an adult Stale, who leaves Pride perplexed, and then they're teleported to Maria's room, who is deeply sick. And that's why Pride brought Arthur with her, as his power not only cured crops but also can heal people as well. She feels bad, as Arthur was supposed to discover this in 5 years and not now. After this, Stale asks Pride if he was useful, and she answers that yes, he was, but interrupts him to ask what's up with that body, and Stale answers that Gilbert modified it so he can be more useful and stronger with his power. Then Gilbert thanks Pride and kneels to her, asking for punishment, as he reveals information about the royal family, spreads bad rumors about her, and tries to defame her to gain power and allies. He couldn't get someone to cure his wife, so he was ready to accept any punishment. Pride doesn't accept a punishment, but rather makes him vow that he will serve the nation all his life, and he is pleased to accept it, and also makes a vow of admiration, submission, and devotion, which astonishes Arthur and makes Stale and Pride embarrassed. That same night, Arthur tells Stale that he informed both her father and vice captain about his power, and both were shocked upon hearing this. So Stale proposes Arthur become a doctor, as he could become even royalty with a power like that. So Arthur clarifies that he is already a knight, and he will become the sword for Pride, as Stale is already the shield, as the rumors harming Pride are almost gone within the years he was there. Then we jump to the other night, as Gilbert and Maria are hosting a gala where Stale finally admits in front of Gilbert that he despises him, and Gilbert takes that as a challenge. Later in that same gala, Gilbert announces that he will finally marry Maria. After some time in duels, Arthur is now the royal guard of Pride and is happy about it. Even Taira, who now is happy that Arthur is going to spend more time with them. On the first day of his work, they're on the carriage when suddenly the carriage stops, as a man is lying on the ground who appears to be Val. The group attends Val's injuries, and Pride asks him why is he there. Result that he wants to rescue 2 children named Sifect and Kemek, who were for selling, but Val is too prideful to admit wanting help and instead wants Pride to go away, but Pride makes him tell all the info with his contract. Then Pride and her group come back after evaluating the situation and find Val covered in on his knuckles, but he accepts food. Then Tyra starts to ask him about the kids, but Val dismisses her. And that's when Val almost opens his heart, so Pride asks to go out only for this night, and Stale tells her that they will be back in 1 hour. Pride starts asking, what are these kids for you, and why are you so sad? Val becomes so frustrated as they were following him everywhere at the beginning, and he had to teach them everything, that he found them annoying, but Pride didn't believe this and pushed further. When she pushed further, only sadness could be heard in Val's voice as he told her that he remembered their yells for help while he couldn't do anything because of the slavery contract. He started to feel so frustrated that he even started to cry, and that's when Pride realized that Tyra maybe knew what she was doing with those questions, as Pride herself couldn't see the problem beforehand. Val was crying because he missed those guys. That's where Pride commands him to not push her away and hugs him, explaining to him that he feels sorrow, guilt, and sadness as he misses his family and wishes he could have helped those kids before. This was his punishment, to feel and continue living until he is old, the punishment to feel love and feel loved. So that's when Pride proposes to him to help. The next evening, Val arrives with the 5 children at the spot where the kidnappers took Sifek and Kemek, and they also take him because he offered himself as the 5th person. In the carriage, we can see that these children are none other than Arthur, Gilbert, Stale, and Pride, who with the power of Gilbert could infiltrate easily the place. Stale and Pride asked Gilbert for his help as he had information about this issue, so he decided to infiltrate along with them and arm a plan that consists in liberate most of the people with Stale's power, and then the knights would go and rescue the rest of the people. Now in the carriage, the plan begins, and Stale starts using his power to teleport the people to a safe zone. Stale and Val leave Pride and the others to save the people with special abilities, while the main group goes to the cell with normal people. They find the siblings in a corner, where they start talking with them, and they believe that it was Val who tricked them to save them. At the special cells, Stale and Val realize that Sifek and Kemek are maybe hiding their special abilities, so they won't find them. Realizing this, Stale orders Val to make noise to attract the attention of the guards while he rescues another special ability that is excluded in the caves. Hearing the noise, Arthur and the others are alert, especially Sifek, who starts becoming anxious, and because of this, she starts blasting with water. The guards, meanwhile, Stale confronts the special user, as this user didn't know what to do with his life, and because of it, he gets heavily burned, but promises him a better tomorrow, as Pride promises also him, which makes the user move and accept to be teleported to appreciate a beautiful starry sky upon him, and Stale faints because of his pain. The guards arrive at the cave and are surprised by the mini Pride and tease Arthur about it, as Val and Stale are captured by the bandits. Gilbert tries to defend them and knocks some people, but it's shot in the process in his arm. Thankfully, Arthur intercepts and saves him, but not for longer, as Val is taken hostage, so he has to give up his sword. However, Pride comes and cuts the chain. Saving everyone, the bandit now wants a duel to Pride, but she dismisses him, and she will not filth her hands with his blood, so Captain Allen does the job. But suddenly a bunch of explosions occur. In the middle of the explosion, everyone has to flee the caves, but Sifek and Kemek are still in the cave, so they have to search for them. While searching for them, they find out that Kemek got trapped between rocks, and Sifek cannot save him. Val decides to rescue him, and everyone tries to do so, but because of the continual explosions, they have to go. But Val stays, trying to rescue Kemek, as he was ordered by Pride to save him and make a wall to stop anyone who tries to stop him, which Val thanks her. Feeling desperate because of the situation, and anxious, Gilbert stops her from thinking clearly, as looking now at the power of Sifek is lesser than before, so he assumes that maybe Kemek's powers are to make a person's abilities more powerful. Pride goes back and orders Val to retire the wall, and then orders him to grab Kemek's hand and use his powers to control the cave, which he does. He's amazed that he did so. Pride asks about Kemek's power, but neither of them knows what to answer, as only Sifek is the one who properly knows how they work. Then they exit the cave ultra fast, so fast that Pride is scared of this. Now in the exit, Sifek is grateful that both of them are safe. However, in a balloon that is invisible and mysterious, but evil man orders his servants to throw the rest of the dynamite, as it could go to waste, and they do so, injuring a lot of the guards, but also making Val fall, saving Sifek and Kemek from it. Val starts to remember that after signing the contract of slavery, he came back to the country where he was born as a poor boy who was bullied as a phenomenon, and where he slept there were Sifek and Kemek, who also were. But the kids, upon seeing Val, decided to stop messing with them. The time passed, and Val started to teach things like money or how they worked. Sifek and Kemek started to use Sifek power to sell water to then obtain gains, while Val worked hard for them. They started to act as a family and even started to have dinner together, which Val's co-worker and vibe. But one evening, the kids were ripped apart from him, and he couldn't do anything but cry as he heard their help please go far and far away. These flashbacks are interrupted by Pride, who launches towards him to save him, as he is now his subject, so she couldn't let him die like that. And with a whistle like a dog, Stale wakes up and rescues him from. Val is finally reunited with his kids, and they cry while hugging each other after all of this. After this incident, the days pass, and now there are investigations for who was the person who launched the explosions on them while they were on the cliff. Meanwhile, Val arrives with his family as he delivers documents to the other kingdom, which makes all of them as if it was pretty fast. Sifect expressed that it was so fast that she couldn't see anything but lines and was at the beginning terrified, but she got used to. Seeing this, Pride promotes Val as the new royal messenger. After hearing this, Val is happy but continues to tease Pride, who informs him that she is agreeing to build schools for everyone, and Sifect and Kimik could enter them to be educated, so Val makes a vow with her, the same as Gilbert, her feet, as this is considered impudent, and because of this, everyone goes in the carriage faster than usual. Later, Arthur trains with Gilbert the hand-to-hand combat, but in Gilbert's words, he likes the floor so much that he can't get up, so Gilbert teases Stale, and they both, Arthur and Stale, try to fight Gilbert, as the prize is him teaching them a technique to knock people out faster, but they both likes the floor. A few minutes later, Val was assigned to deliver another royal information, so Tara asked him if she could spend time with Sifect and Kimik. Val accepted, and unconsciously he grabbed Pride's hand thinking it was Kimik and immediately released it. Tyra, for the other hand, told Pride to cheer up the boys as they were shocked upon seeing this. While Val was going, he blushed like a tomato. Then Pride cheered up our boys by telling them how good they were, but even with that boost, they couldn't overpower Gilbert at all. However, they could share a moment reminding each other of their vows and also having Pride to clean their dirtiness, as they were a mess, and sharing a tender moment as they both are happy to be at Pride's side and Pride to be at theirs.